Dubbed Our Lady of the Ladle in 1966 by Time magazine, Julia Child was a cultural phenomenon who introduced America to French cooking.
Julia was the face of cooking. It was the first time seeing a woman out of a home kitchen as a professional, being strong and powerful and playful.
Julia really changed cooking in the United States because she took it from being drudgery to being a joy, the joy that it should be.
Julia Carolyn McWilliams was born on August 15, 1912, in Pasadena, California.
Her mother had a cook, as did all their friends and neighbors. So there was no interest in cooking. There was interest in eating. And Julia, who grew to be 6 feet 2 inches tall, was always ravenous.
I was always tremendously hungry. My theory was that the more you ate at every meal, the better off you were.
During World War II, Julia was stationed in Asia, where she met Paul Child in 1945.
That's also when she fell in love with food, Chinese food. They would go to restaurants and they talked about food as they were eating it, and that was very different for her.
A year later, they were married.
She realized that the man she'd fallen in love with, Paul Child, was one of those people who adored food.
After World War II, Julia moved to Paris, when her husband was assigned to work in the American embassy there.
Julia was looking for a career, and it was suggested because she was so passionate about learning to be a good cook for Paul's sake that she should go to the Cordon Bleu.
I think when Julie first attended the Cordon Bleu, she did create a revolution. Not only was she a woman, she was an American woman, and she was bound and determined to prove that she could do this, and she did.
While living in Paris, Julie got the idea of writing a cookbook and teaching cooking in her own apartment from 2 women who were doing that. She started working with them on their book, and the 3 of them would alternate classes for American women in their respective apartments.
After many years of collaborative work, the 2-volume, 734-page cookbook was published in 1961.
Mastering the Art of French Cooking was groundbreaking because it was one of the first books to present everything in a step-by-step approach, which made it easy for people to follow and learn.
Julia got her start on TV at the public television station in Boston when she was on as a guest promoting her cookbook. They got so much of a response that they asked her to come back and do a cooking show.
The French Chef was the first nationwide cooking show. Julia Child's attitude was great for amateur cooks. The way she was carefree, and if you make a mistake, it's okay, just keep going, move on.
Julia's presence on TV is what really made her the face of cooking in America. There was no one like her back then, and honestly, I don't believe there's anyone like her today still.
In 1993, Julia Child became the first woman inducted into the Culinary Institute Hall of Fame. In 2000, the Smithsonian National Museum of American History moved her kitchen and made it part of their permanent exhibit.
One of Julia's greatest gifts was she helped to spark an outcry for better ingredients.
We talk about locavores today, we talk about sustainable and organic, and all of these are the names that are given to what I think Julia started.
I think Julia brought to America about changing the way we thought about cooking. It wasn't a job that just had to be done quickly in the kitchen. It was really about having a great time, being in there with friends, with family, and enjoying the process.
In 2004, Julia Child died.
There's no question in my mind. She changed the face of cooking in this country.
My early memories of Julia are the book. My mother had the book in her pantry, and this book in particular was just, there was something romantic and very adult and almost sort of illicit about it. You know, there's the French words and the little drawings of things I didn't understand, and so that was my first experience with Julia Child. This is a book for the American servantless cook. She wanted to make this food that she had found that she had fallen in love with accessible to a housewife in the 1960s, which means that she had to teach people A, from scratch who didn't know anything about cooking, and B, how to cook things that they could find in a supermarket in the US in 1961, which was tricky. it transformed the way women and men came to the kitchen. I do think that the heart of the book is the Bœuf Bourguignon. Julia has always done best at these classic country French cooking, these wonderful soulful dishes. The Bœuf Bourguignon is the absolute exemplar of that. Her recipe is so beautiful. It's almost like art. I will never be Julia Child, but I can see her genius in that recipe, and it's delicious as well. When we went to Julia Child's kitchen, I of course had read a lot about it. I knew more or less what to expect. Just the fact that they built up the counters to her height, you know, especially made counters and tables, and so everything feels like, it really feels like you're kind of walking into a giant's house, which you are. She had, you know, gorgeous collections of just piles and piles of stuff, and of course her lovely obsessive compulsive husband who, you know, drew all the outlines so she knew where each pot went and where. So that's a great thing too, because Paul's peeking around the edges of that kitchen, which is fun. When I started learning more about Paul, I really came to admire, you know, this man who's very talented in his own right, very sophisticated, incredibly intelligent, how he was so devoted and absolutely 100% about it. To me, it was just such a wonderful evocation of what it is like to sort of stand next to her legacy, or to stand in her space. Is that she was literally too big for the world, and when you walk and when you're in that kitchen, you feel it. You feel smaller.
But the real miracle was almost a year later when she got on this talk show in Boston, WGBH. It was an intellectual show, but Julia was invited to come on, and so she brought her Bunsen burner and her omelet pan and eggs, and she started showing America, well, this little Boston audience, how to make an omelet, flipping it and turning it, coming out just perfect. And they got such mail. They said, "Bring that woman back on." Pretty soon, they got the idea and put together 13 shows, and little by little they were taken up by stations all over America. And I think what she really did for Americans, we were so repressed. We'd bought this message from the food industry that the little woman shouldn't be cooking. And certainly I grew up in a household English that we never had garlic or onions, only for a little lamb stew. And so, and you never talked about food at the table to say num num the way Julia would say. It was vulgar. It was like talking about sex at the table. And suddenly Julia sort of lifted that Puritan repression, and people said, "Hey, it is fun." And she did it so naturally and spontaneously. For instance, I remember once when she had patted the chicken breast and was rubbing the butter in. Somebody said, "Why do you massage the chicken?" She said, "Well, I guess he likes it." And that just endeared her to all of America, and I think that was part of her great secret.